for fiscal year 22. 2 public hearings are required by the state to formally adopt next year's budget. Our first public hearing is planned as part of the council meeting on Thursday, September 16th at 6 p.m. And the second and final hearing to adopt the budget will be at a special council meeting scheduled for September 30th at 5 p.m. So just a reminder, this is a balanced budget. Anything that is discussed and added today would require changes, either increases or offsets in other areas. That's all I have.
Any questions, Ms. Castle? All right. Are there any departments that you would directly like to hear from? I did not plan on going through every single department and hearing from their director. So if there are any departments specifically that you'd like to hear from, otherwise we can move on to the council discussion items. Anyone?
I think I'm good.
Okay, then item 3.1, social services funding.
Okay. So this is my item, and in my learning curve, in a variety of ways, both as a council member and things I do outside of being a council member, but mostly council member, and serving on the Continuum of Care, which is the Homeless Leadership Alliance, kind of a countywide organization. And this isn't new because I brought this up a few weeks ago or a couple months ago. I'd like to advocate for some more funding for social services from our general funds. And I've learned that over the last 10 years, we've allocated $250,000 from general funds for some social service agencies throughout the county. And it's been stagnant for the last 10 years at $250,000. So I think just looking at our economy and the cost of living over the last 10 years and the cost of operating and doing business, let alone the minimum wage, it would make sense to allocate some more funds if we want those services to continue at the same level. I'd like to advocate for $500,000 rather than $250,000. And I have a whole list of, well, there are a number of stats that I provided at the previous meeting. But we do have, I'm thinking about some questions about how can we target, well, first of all, let me say from my heart, I think that dealing with the homeless or people who are struggling with affordable housing, people who are struggling with mental health issues or substance abuse issues, that's a humanitarian concern, countywide, statewide, nationwide. And so to say that, Clearwater and St. Pete and maybe Largo are the ones that are putting the most into the continuum of care, I think we can do better as a county with our 24 municipalities, and they should all be putting in a little bit more for those services. And I think if we can bump our contribution up a bit, I think that would make a nice argument to go to those other municipalities and say, please start pitching in to help. Just because they may congregate more in Clearwater or St. Pete doesn't mean it's not a countywide, statewide, national-wide challenge. And I would hope that we can do that. We kind of talked about that a little bit, but I serve on the Suncoast League of Cities, and we had a strategic meeting on Saturday, and affordable housing came up, and then I'm going to the Florida League of Cities, and I think you all are as well, next weekend, where certainly the environment and affordable housing are front and center. So to think about the maybe 80 or so chronic homeless that we have in Clearwater, I reached out to some of the people who are in leadership at the Continuum of Care, and how are we going to account for any additional funds that we may put into social services? And so one of the things that was suggested is that maybe we can have case management paired with our emergency housing vouchers. So we have permanent supportive housing, and we don't have enough of those units, but we could pair maybe, we could have these permanent supportive housing units. These vouchers could be used for community units if they had a case manager. Staff and colleagues might also like that the investment leverages their dollars. So for $150,000 or $50,000 a year for 3 years for case management, we could have a case manager work with those clients, and the voucher would cover the rent, and then we could provide wraparound services. So that's one idea. And, and the other thing I would say is, I have the most recent data put out on July 31st on our eviction moratorium that expired and what it's going to mean for our county. And so I can read off some of these, alarming statistics. We have 13,140 households behind on rent in Pinellas County. 73% of renters behind on rent are people of color. We have right now over 2,000 individuals and 2,760 children who are currently homeless. And this is one of the most, shocking, surprising, alarming statistics, is there are only 28 available and affordable units for every 100 low-income families who are looking for housing in the county. And so, it's a crisis. I'm a guardian ad litem. The case manager on one of my, I have 2 little boys, the case manager has 100 people on his caseload, only because case managers are dropping off like flies. And so you have to assign these families, these children, to different case managers. So there's a crisis in the county. And then the last bit of argument that I would make is, we signed on to the Advantage Pinellas Housing Compact, and this is, what we agreed to philosophically, is that, Section 5 here says, the partners agree to work toward the provision of safe, quality housing that is accessible to residents of diverse ages, abilities, and provides both rental and ownership opportunities. And I think when we talk about people with different abilities, we mean those people that sit on the park bench or who are congregating around Walgreens or who line up for our feedings on, Friday nights. I'm there with Beacon Street Ministries handing out food. We have new people coming every Friday, young people, families. There's a need, and I think we can make a symbolic statement by doubling the amount to $500,000, which is like 0.01% of the budget anyway. But I think that would give us leverage, and then going out and asking other municipalities to start chipping in and making a little bit of a difference. And I think the money would come from general funds, so.
Okay, but from a budgetary standpoint, if we take it from general funds, this would be a $250,000 that you would plan on giving from here forward, keeping it at $500,000?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Not just a one-year thing, absolutely not. No.
So we generally, do you want to talk about that, Mr. Horn?
Well, I have a...
Ongoing expenses and using general fund reserves.
Well, I think before we get to that, I have some other, reactions, but I didn't want to get ahead of you all, so...
Okay.
I'll comment. I can comment now if you want me to. You want me to go ahead?
Well, I think you can frame it.
Okay, first of all, and I want to be very, respectful in my comments, but I would not use the word stagnant. The budget was intentionally set at $250,000 to fund what we felt we needed as a city among those homeless providers that would address our chronic homeless situation on the streets. Included in those grants are providers who could help people who wanted to come off the street. That's why Pinellas Hope, that's why HEP, that's why the Salvation Army got some of that grant money, because we did find some people who said, I'll go. Safe Harbor got at least $100,000 of that amount of money because Safe Harbor is where we put the most difficulty. So the first thing I would say is it wasn't stagnant. It was a very intentional sum that I felt we could support out of the general fund. You all can easily increase that amount, if you want, but I just had to clear that up. The second thing that I'd like to make is comment has to do with if we were to increase it and then go to other cities and ask them to contribute, I don't quite understand that. Who would be going to other cities and asking them to contribute because they're not contributing? Is this a responsibility that you're going to put on the staff? Is this something that our elected officials are going to take on? I think those other cities clearly have established voting with their feet as to whether they want to support, homeless or these kinds of issues. So we really would need to clarify who's going to carry the water there. Thirdly, we have no social workers in the city of Clearwater. So the social workers we do use, we work with Directions for Living, for example, as an agency that provides that social worker support. So if the issue is case management support, this is something that would have to be contracted with an agency like that because our staff, we're not social workers, and I don't think the chief would want to get his officers more engaged than they already are in providing social work services. Again, our perspective is, the county has that as a primary mission. And then lastly, so if we add an additional $250,000, where would that money go? Because our focus has been primarily homeless. Not taking anything away from what Councilmember Beckman has articulated about the county need. But again, from my perspective, the county need in social services, case management need is really, that's what the county is qualified to address. They have the budget to address it. At least our county dollars, our tax dollars are funded to do that. So so that's kind of where I am. I don't know if Chuck or Denise has anything to add to this, but that's kind of my opening salvo there. Denise, did you have anything to add to what I said?
Maybe not. Well, Denise Anderson, Economic Development and Housing. Okay, to remove my mask.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So, as you know, we currently fund 6 organizations: HEP, the Homeless Leadership Alliance, Pinellas Hope, Safe Harbor, Hope Villages of America, which was formerly known as RCS Pinellas, and Salvation Army. And just as a reminder for council, a previous version of you all passed a resolution several years ago endorsing Housing First, which was a resolution requested by the Homeless Leadership Alliance, so that any organizations we fund comply with Housing First. And generally what that means is that they participate in the Homeless Management Information System. So I would just put that out there as an action has been taken several years ago that we agreed to support only those organizations that comply with that. And so as you consider this going forward and contemplate, if you do increase, how you would wish to spend that, I would caution you that those are the organizations that we previously said we would support because they comply. Additionally, my understanding is St. Vincent de Paul, not on this list, is currently participating in HMIS, but the Going Home Coalition does not, the Refuge Church does not. So if that is helpful to you at all as you continue your discussion.
Any questions for Ms. Anderson? Councilmember Beckman?
Well, I have a couple of so those organizations that we fund that have a Housing First focus, which is part of the COC that I serve on, that's phenomenal. I fully support that. But when those organizations come to us for funding, we have a cap on how much they can ask for, right?
What I'm referring to is just the general fund spend, that $250,000. So we're utilizing general fund compliant with Housing First resolution, and they must participate in a HMIS in order to be on that list.
Well, so are you telling me that Safe Harbor participates in HMIS?
Yes.
And what are they doing for Housing First? Because I toured that out there. you know,
So their goal, of course, is to get people stable and moving on. So they have those apartments in the back. While they do serve as an emergency shelter, there is a component for emergency shelter within HMIS. It doesn't always mean we put you in permanent supportive housing or permanent housing.
and did you say we send money to Safe Harbor?
Yes,
Okay, so Safe Harbor is the one run by our sheriff's department, right?
correct.
And they're the one who they have a ratio of 348 to 1 for case management for substance abuse, mental health. I mean, that's.
I'm not familiar
I
with
know,
that stat, but-
but that was what I was told when I did that tour out there. They have one case manager for those things. So those are those hard to place. And when people say things like, well, you know, we're helping the ones who want to get off the street, there are a number of ones that I think are in our community who might not want to get off the street because they've got mental health or substance abuse issues that takes a different type of intervention. And I think, you know, I think we got to be clear that that's not just their choice. It's part of how they need to be treated, what kind of treatment they need, whether it's mental health or substance abuse issues. But thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Horn? Vice Mayor?
Well, I'm gonna come from a little different angle, and Councilmember Beckman, I really appreciate your passion for the subject, but I can't speak necessarily for Councilmember Albritton or Councilmember Bunker, but I know the mayor and I, you know, we've been here a long time, and over the years, and we advocate for these same things too, not as publicly and wear it on our sleeve as you do, but, you know, these are not, you know, the social service programs are not things that are in our toolbox. We do what we can. We have the $250,000, but we advocate constantly to the people above us, the county level elected officials, state level, federal level, to please, because they're the ones that supply and operate these programs. We're always advocating with them to give us more money, to give them more money. This money and these programs are not in our toolbox, and we need to be able to take care of what is in our toolbox, and that's what our budget is based on. We will always, and I will always continue to advocate for that. And as I've said before, you know, our community, Clearwater as a community, is very philanthropic. All these, HEP has tremendous fundraisers, has great support from the business community. It's a team effort, but the operation, the actual, the work is done and administered by people not in the city of Clearwater. So, you know, we want to be a partner, we want to help what we can, but we also got to take care of our own house first. And you know, that being said, you know, we want to keep doing it, but I just don't see the need. You know, the 250 to 500,000 in the overall scope of our budget is a token. I mean, it would be it's a rounding error, as we've referred to it sometimes. It would be a rounding error in some aspects. But, you know, the other cities in the county, I can tell you some of the small municipalities, small beach municipalities, their budgets are such that they don't have any money they don't have the money to give. Even if we went and said, hey, you need to give some. We're giving some, we're doing it, you need to give some. I'm not sure you'd get the buy-in, but I think we just need to be sure, us sitting up here and whoever sits here in the future, our staff, everybody will continue to hammer away at the elected officials at higher levels than us to make sure that we can get everything we can get. I mean, that's where I come from. We just, you know, we got to take care of our own house first and advocate for these others, but these social services are not in our toolbox. These are not for us to administer.
Councilmember Beck.
So just to be crystal clear, I'm not advocating for any city employee to serve as a case manager or anything like that. I'm just wanting our 250 to be bumped up to 500 and let the professionals who know how to deal with things, deal with them. Again, if we can give it to even Safe Harbor for more case management, specifically for people with mental health or substance abuse, that might be great. I'm thinking of, well, how are we going to account for, this helping Clearwater residents only? Again, for me, it's a philosophical thing related to humanity. It's not about, are they registered for Clearwater? I mean, they're homeless. They don't have a zip code, some of them. It's just the right thing to do. And then the other thing is, I'm very willing to go to each municipality and make a heartfelt plea and show the stats and facts. I mean, I'm on a number of different boards with other elected officials, and they, they've said, yeah, I think maybe we should pony up a little bit. If they haven't been asked, how will we know? And even $10,000 from, we have 24 municipalities in the county. Is it 24, 21?
24.
24. And I think 3 of us contribute to the COC. That's why I get those numbers mixed up. But even if we have 21 contribute $10,000 a year, a rounding error, to pay for some case management at Safe Harbor, or whatever the professionals. I'm not dictating anything. I'm not suggesting. I'm just saying there is a critical need for case management in the county, and wraparound services. There's also homeless prevention and diversion that are critical, and they will be even more in the next few months. So I'm just saying, it's great to say we're supportive and we work behind the scenes. It's another thing to write a check and make change happen. And I think we can write a little bigger check.
Councilmember Albrecht.
Well, again, I appreciate your compassion. I think we all have a lot of compassion for homeless people, but I can tell you we've been dealing with them a long time, especially the ones that are chronic homeless. And I've got one that goes to our church that I've been supporting and kind of helping for years, and I've tried to get them into HEP and direct them. That they don't want it. They do not want it. The chronic ones. So I don't know how you're going to get case managers to make any kind of a difference with them. Now maybe there's some people out there that really need help, and I think I kind of agree with Councilman Hamilton. I mean, it's really not in our wheelhouse. I think we're making an effort to pay some of our local people to give them help. The Sheriff's Department years ago didn't even have Safe Harbor. That was something invented or put together by them, and that really, really works. I mean, before, the police would just put them in jail and then the next day let them out. They'd do the same thing, and they got a free meal and places to sleep. But Safe Harbor, for the ones that really want to change, I think takes care of them. So I'm not really, I guess maybe you're more involved with that, but if you show me proof that, we are, that Safe Harbor is critically in need of caseworkers, which I haven't heard that before. Unless that is, maybe that's something that you can do, but right now I don't think I would support another 250. I think we're doing the best we can. I think the programs work. HEP, for the ones that really want to get out of the homeless situation, they put them through a program. It's great, and they give them housing.
Councilmember Bunker.
So we have $250,000 in our toolbox. And clearly, we think it's money well spent. That we need to do something to help folks with this problem. I saw you blanch when the vice mayor said another 250 is a token. It'd probably be easy enough to dig around the toolbox and find that token. I don't know, just how big those ramifications would be if we were to do that, but this is not a problem that is going to be addressed by continuing to just say, yeah, we're doing what we can. And I can see it only being beneficial to put a little more money into the situation to try to get some more help. As far as who's going to be pushing this to the other cities, well, I would think the media would take care of some of that. They'd be going, well, Clearwater just doubled their investment in this. Are you planning to do something extra to help out as well? And hopefully there'd be public pressure along those lines as well. You know, nothing will get done unless we do it. And it's easy to say, well, you know, it's the state, it's the federal, or, you know, we keep asking them for it and they never give us any more. I'd like to see us try to do a little bit better and try to find some other solutions as well. And I think that may include a program that I talked about on the campaign trail, where working with charities, the city of Detroit had put together a program where you could rent to own tiny homes. So it would be $1 per square foot. If somebody wanted a 250 square foot home, it's $250 bucks a month for that, or $400 for the appropriate size. And after 10 years or so, you've owned the property that you've been paying into with your rent. That seems to me to be something that I'd like to see if we can get some people in the city with the different churches and charitable groups maybe considering something like that. There are other ideas we can look for rather than just saying, well, they don't want to get off the street. I'm sure that's the case for several people. It's probably not the case for all the people who are now facing eviction and are dealing with this major crisis as we're going back into wearing masks and worrying about, you know, the new variant sweeping the nation. So I would vote yes on the 500,000.
Okay. You have something else to
Yeah,
add
thank
before I
you.
make my comments?
Yes, thank you very much. So these were part of my notes from, you know, a month or two ago or whatever. So right now, our $250,000 annually from our general fund monies is 0.16% of our $152 million general fund budget-ish, you know, just round numbers. By contrast, St. Pete allocates close to $2 million. So compared to our $250,000, St. Pete allocates $1,735,633 from general funds. That's 0.6% of their budget. Granted, they're bigger, right? But it's just a little comparison there about. And again, those stats can be used with other municipalities in the county to say, please help, please try to make a difference. This is what we're doing, or others are doing. I'm done now for now.
Okay. Well, first of all, to your question, Mr. Horn, about who should carry water, I don't think it should be our staff. If that's something we want to go to other municipalities and ask for their support, it ought to be the electeds to electeds. I don't think there's any question about that. You know, this is a tough question for me in many ways. I actually have a family member who's been homeless. That's the first time I've ever said it publicly. And we have tried to help him in numerous ways. Unfortunately, it's a cycle that's never been broken for a number of reasons. And so I hope someday he finds the help and finds it within himself to make the decisions that he needs to get out of that cycle. For me, this all goes back to what are the different lanes for the different levels of government? And the city of Clearwater definitely has its lane, the county has its lane, the state, and the federal government. It is pretty much obvious to me that just throwing money at things doesn't always work. If you've been to San Francisco recently, they're spending about $1.1 billion on homelessness. And it is one of the worst places I've ever been to for homelessness. It is a black hole of money. I think we all want to see people break out, and I've actually talked to some of our hardcore homeless in downtown Clearwater and asked them, tell me your story. And a lot of them have made a decision, and that's okay. I mean, that's what they want. They don't want anyone infringing upon their freedoms. I've gotten about 15 emails today of people that don't want us to infringe upon their freedoms by talking about vaccines. And that certainly is their right. A doctor told me I'm probably going to hemorrhage out because I've already been stuck, as he said. That's a sidebar. But I mean, this is the county's responsibility. They get 26% of your tax dollars when you get your trim notice. We get about 24. And, you know, for 1 year we could add 250 and take it out of general fund reserves, but at some point you have to budget it. Because Ms. Castle, can we just have a quick budget 101? Do you use reserves for ongoing expenses?
No.
Why
And
not?
we have a policy against it. Because reserves are reserved for a what if. We live in a coastal community, so that's one thing that we always speak to is response to emergencies. Our policy says you can use it for one-time expense. Of ongoing, you would not do. So if you increase it at any point today, I would not use reserves. We'd have to go back and look somewhere to adjust a revenue or offset it with an expenditure.
So we either pull away from something else that we're doing,
Right.
or we increase the millage rate.
Right. It's not really a rounding error.
Man, I've never gotten that evil on.
So I guess my question also would be, Councilmember Beckman, and I did talk to Mayor Kreisman. He said that they were not going to increase their budget. And I'm happy to talk to anybody else. I think it's something that, you know, the organizations and the boards that you are representing us on should come together and do a countywide ask of all the municipalities with a very specific list of if additional money was allocated by the municipalities, where it would go, and what the anticipated benefit is going to be. And if the entire county was willing to get on board with that, then I would certainly want to participate. I also think if we need more caseworkers down at Safe Harbor, then, you know, that's something that, again, the county ought to be asked for, because that's their lane. We cannot vote on anything today. This is just a work session. But my inclination is right now not to increase it. And if we want to discuss it next year and budget it, that's something that I think we could think about. But I would like a more concrete list of how it would be used and what the anticipated results would be. So we can add it to the agenda for the first budget meeting, or we could do it in the second meeting of August, and we can vote on these things if we need to. I mean, I can count right now, but
Well, I have a question.
What would you want us to put in front
well,
of
let's get
you?
through all of these.
Yeah, okay.
And then maybe we can land on what actions we want to take.
Okay.
Okay? So go ahead.
All right, so where is the 250,000 coming from right now that we're allocating for these social services?
It's just budgeted out of the general fund.
Other general fund.
Okay,
Yeah,
then,
It's budgeted in the Economic Development and Housing Department from general fund.
okay. To economic development and housing from the general fund. And so if we wanted to increase it to 500,
It would increase the department budget for economic development and
Yeah, by
housing, and
250.
we would have to increase revenues or decrease something somewhere else. We would have to take a look at that.
what would we look at? What kind of things could we look at, do you think, if that was
You'd
a
have to look at every
directive?
single general fund department in their budget and identify things that you would like to cut.
I don't think it's fair to ask Ms. Castle who she wants to secure. No, I'm serious. I mean, I think that's something that we should look at. If there's a department that we think, you know, there's money that's not being spent that's as important as this, then that would be where you would take it from.
Okay,
But, I mean, I don't feel like we ought to put you on the spot to decide who's,
No, I mean, I wouldn't, definitely not. I mean, if you chose to increase for anything that we're speaking of, we would, again, kind of like we had to do last year, we would go and look at everything. We would look at revenues, see if there's adjustments that we could make there, or in departments, in different departments. And also to your point, Mayor, we amend our budget 3 times a year, so just if we say postpone it, we can bring it back at first quarter and, you know, look for opportunities. It would be the same situation, you know, it would be looking for increases or decreases in other places, but we do amend our budget 3 times a year.
okay.
We wouldn't expect you all to know what's the best way to absorb that. You know, we would do that. I mean, we would look internally. And part of the challenge there is that if you did do that, then that really puts you all in a very difficult position. Not knowing, you know, just exactly how we could weather that storm. So really the fundamental issue, Mayor, goes back to what you said, is that you all would just need to make that commitment, that that's what you wanted to do, and then we would go and make the adjustment. Because you're making a policy decision to do that.
now I will make a commitment to you. Over the next several mayor's council meetings, I will raise this with all the mayors. Okay?
That's good.
And ask for feedback, and I'll bring it back to the council.
Okay, but I can talk to the people up at the Florida League of Cities and our
Well, you can
Suncoast
talk
League
to
of Cities.
anybody.
I know. And
Just
I
not
do.
us four.
I do. And so when I toured, you know, Safe Harbor, and they told me that the case management ratio is 348 to 1. All right, so if I come back with, you know, more stats about the need throughout our county, and the fact is the county is not meeting that need. So when we say 24% or whatever percent of our taxes goes to the county and it's a county's responsibility, it's not being met. And either they don't have enough money or, you know, they're not allocating it right or whatever. I'm not going to make that, there's never enough money for people in need. When we have, you know, 2,000 queued up for eviction, I mean, those stats that are coming, this tsunami of evictions and things, I mean, there's just not enough money. You know, the people who come before us in the spring for the HUD dollars have a cap on how much they can ask for. St. Vincent de Paul and Perk are sharing a case manager because they can't afford one. And so there's a reality of that situation. And so I guess, you know, if you want some more facts about the need, I can do that. I mean, maybe I can reach out to somebody in the county and say, why aren't you guys giving more?
Well, I don't think anyone's disputing the need. I think the need is endless.
Okay, if it's endless, then can we give a little more than we have over the last 10 years? The same amount. That to me, just like, though, that disconnect is you know, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, we're not voting on it today, so I'll do some more research and reaching out, and we can discuss it at the next meeting.
Okay. 3.2. These are all yours.
Oh, great. All right, so 3.2 is,
Council budget for
yeah,
reimbursements.
there we go. So funding for a facilities energy manager. So I shared with you
No,
some,
this is 3.2.
oh, I'm sorry, 3.2.
Council budget for reimbursements.
That wasn't mine, I don't know what that is. That wasn't me? Is my name on it?
That's what I was told by staff.
That was the one that we had doubled, we had it on the work session, and then we also had it on this meeting, so.
Well,
like,
but on Monday, we talked about the table for information. My understanding was this was about your newsletter. Is that not what this is about?
I believe that
You wanted
is what it's about.
reimbursements for your expenses?
Oh, well, I've asked questions about, I guess so. So I've asked questions about what kind of a budget we have as council members. Like, do we have a set, pot of money? Like, I have $500 a year to spend. I just wanted to know that, and what can I spend it on? So I send out a monthly newsletter, and mostly it's digital, and I pay for Constant Contact. And I pay Wix for a website that I maintain. And I've started to mail out some printed newsletters. And so I just wanted to know, as I paid for some stamps and things, and I saw that we have a budget, the council has a budget. So I'm like, okay, nobody told me how much is it and what can we use it for?
Well, let me just quickly summarize what your budget is all about. It's about salaries and
Okay.
the salary increases that you all get annually, and that's based on Social Security and cost of living. It's about memberships. You all fund memberships for the cities, U.S. Conference of Mayors, Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council. That's, your budget goes to that. You have a travel budget. And that budget is approximately $15,960. It's the same level as it was last year, and I believe that's allocated to all of you. And at one point, we used to allocate it per council member, and then if you exceeded it, then you'd have to come and ask for some additional money. I don't know.
We still have that same setup.
Okay, so there's a portion of this travel budget that is allocated to each council member. You are budgeted for internal charges, information technology, telecommunication, risk management, and that has had an 11% increase. We fund special program fund for Nagano Sister City programs, so there's an allocation there. And let's see, that's it.
Okay.
So, just the day-to-day pencils and paper and all that, I mean, that's kind of a de minimis amount that's covered, and charged to your budget.
Okay.
And that's around $500, I believe, yes.
It's about $500.
For like printing and things like that? What's the $500 for?
For funding whatever Tammy needs for office
Like
supplies,
binders or
printing,
posters
things like that.
Okay,
We
I
pay
had
per
those big
print.
Post-its that stick on the wall, okay. What's the Nagano Sister Program amount, and what's that for?
Nagano Sister Cities is a program that the council, every 5 years, we go to Nagano, we allocate money to it, so, because we cover the travel for council. And so that's our way of making sure that we have the money when we need it, in order to do that.
Okay. All right. And so I checked out, there was an invitation to a National League of Cities conference or some kind of webinar thing. And it was, if you were a non-member, it was it's a lot of money. And so I looked up membership, and it's in the thousands of dollars. So that's nothing we've ever done. Joined the National League of Cities. Are we members? Because that wouldn't be an individual member. Would it apply to all 5 of us?
20 years ago, we were a member of the National League of Cities, and as I recall, after Council Member Hooper, after he left the council, that membership was not reinstated. We kept the Florida League of Cities, and then with Mayor Ox, he wanted to join U.S. Conference of Mayors, so we then funded U.S. Conference of Mayors during his term.
And mine.
and the mayor's for 2 terms.
Okay. Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I wanted to know a little bit about that, and so, yeah. The travel budget's pretty healthy there, right? $16,000 to all of us.
Well, no, that's split over 5 members,
Right, for all of us, yeah.
yeah. So,
But I mean, the only place we really, we're going to Orlando, right? Where else would we be
We
going?
also normally go up to Tallahassee during the legislative
you
session.
travel
Of
to
course, this
Tallahassee, you
past
get
year.
reimbursed for your travel expenses there. It also, my understanding is, our trip to Philadelphia, our travel expenses to Philadelphia are covered covered in that, am I not correct?
What, yeah.
The Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah.
That's out of that, that
The-
covers that, it's,
The registrations are also, so it's not just travel, it's also the registration for whatever conference
For the
you're
League
going
of
to.
Cities and,
Okay. So as part of our, my Suncoast League of Cities strategy conference on Saturday, we talked about the importance of going up to Tallahassee. Every week, we're going to have somebody from the Suncoast League of Cities go up. So I'm thinking our travel budget, certainly we're not all going at the same time because we
Yeah.
can't talk about things.
No, we
Oh,
often
are?
go at the same time.
Really?
Ms. Call goes with us.
I coordinated, in the event that council wishes to reinstate that process, then I coordinate with our lobbyists, the appointments with our legislators, and all of council attends the meetings, and I go with you guys, and just to make sure if there are any asks of the legislator or of council, I get back with them as well. But it's a coordinated event with all of council. who
We
wishes-
normally go during the Florida League of Cities week,
Okay.
and we go around and give them our legislative priorities.
Okay. And we're all in the same room talking about with the legislature, the 5 of us? I'm thinking about sunshine law stuff. Like, would we have to meet individually?
You're just advocating regarding the bill, so it's not about necessarily
What we're voting on here?
voting on,
Okay.
on the dais. It's strictly about the bills, or for instance, if we have an appropriation request regarding the status of that, you're just really advocating. The Florida League of Cities will give you legislative action days, what the mayor was referring to, and they'll give you a list of bills that they want their members to discuss. So we'll discuss mainly those topics, and then we will also highlight our asks of the legislators.
And we've already voted on our legislative agenda
Priorities.
here before we go up there to talk to them.
Okay.
It's mainly to have a presence so that they know we're watching. Most of the Florida League of Cities asks are that they don't do anything to us.
Right.
yeah, exactly.
Most of the time. Okay. All right, I just wanted, that's kind of what I wanted to know about the budget, what it was for and all that stuff. So I don't need to use any of the budget for my individual things I'm doing with websites or newsletters or whatever.
Okay?
It doesn't fall into kind of those things.
I will take this opportunity though, because I thought we were going to talk about that. And I would like us to do, I think, a better job of communicating with the public. I think COVID has been obviously very difficult. We haven't had the public meetings that we would normally have. We just went through the comp plan meetings, and I think Ms. Clayton and her department did a wonderful job, and I think we had very nice turnout. And it was nice to see, and I think people are actually having an appetite for it right now. But I would like to see something where either in Sunshine Lines or elsewhere online that we have things that are going on. And I know we're telling citizens about events that are going on, but council members telling a little bit about, what's going on. And then also, I would like to see us, we've gone through a lot of different iterations of public outreach. I remember when I became mayor in '05, we started the breakfasts. And we were having breakfasts on a monthly basis. And it was disappointing.
Nobody wanted to have breakfast with you.
Nobody cared to have breakfast with. They even cared less about having breakfast with the council members.
Exactly.
So I might get 12, and the council members would get 5 or 6. We'd send out 500 invitations by mail. and we would pick up the breakfast. Now, I will tell you that the people that were there, it was really helpful. And they were random, so it wasn't kind of that continuous group. But it finally ran its course, and Ms. Costelli said, you know, I think this has run its course, Mayor, please. And we terminated it. But, you know, I would like to see us potentially go in a rotation around the city on a monthly basis and advertise that a council member will be at a library or a rec center on a given night. To me, it would be a Tuesday or a Wednesday, Thursday that we have conflicts, or make it a Thursday that's, you know, off the council cycle. And just have an open house for an hour where people could come in and meet with people. And, you know, it would only be one council member, so we wouldn't have any sunshine. But that's something I would entertain, to give us an opportunity. I know you do your meet and greets, but I think it would be good to offer citizens that opportunity. And I don't know what you all think about that.
That's good.
Councilmember
I
Beckman.
think that's good.
and
I just had an idea, but it might not fly. But what if we invited, you know, 2 or 3 residents, and totally random, however we, to join us for the meal that we have before a council meeting upstairs. Now, that would be really interesting. However, what they talked to us about, you know, we couldn't, it would be hard to engage about,
Yeah, we can't talk about it.
I know, about anything meaningful, other than, right,
You couldn't talk about anything that may come before you.
right,
or
right,
foreseen.
right. It would just be listening. It would just be listening.
No.
Not even listening? Can't we just listen?
No, assuming that they're gonna wanna talk to you about city business.
Yes, I would hope so.
Then no.
You can't just write it down?
No.
No? Just nod and write it down? No? That's just listening.
It doesn't matter whether you're listening or feeding back to them.
Yeah,
When you are in a room together, talking or listening to people talk about items that may come before you for a vote, that's problematic. And I can't imagine any of you just not saying anything.
probably not. Probably not, okay. Yeah, well, maybe one person, you know, maybe we could do it, you know, we could meet from, you know, 4 to 5 or whatever with a couple each, and we could rotate, like, you know, you guys choose the caterer, the restaurant, so if Councilmember Albritton chose for this month, then you meet from 4 to 5 with a select group up there before, and then, I don't know, it's just, but 4 to 5 is a tough time for people to show up.
Well, I think the time that we have, just so people know, we have a meal before all of our council meetings. We have a city attorney sitting there over us, and our city clerk and city manager. To me, when we were doing our Zoom meetings originally, you'll remember we were over at the 600 building. We'd get our food, and then we'd all go to our offices. And, you know, to me, that's kind of family time. It's a time that we can talk about what somebody's watching, or a movie somebody saw, or what's going on with your family. I'm serious. I think that's part of the camaraderie of the council, and so that's the only reason I wouldn't necessarily want citizens there either, other than Pam was about to have a conniption.
That's fair.
But, you know, I like that time. I think it's important.
Yeah.
You know, we'll have at least one new council member in March. And so that's, you know,
Okay.
that's, I think, that time that we need to have to build a team. But I think we also, if we're going out to recreation centers and library on a rotating basis, now we're going to where people live. We're going to where they are, not necessarily asking them to come to us. You know, we will be within blocks of their household. So I'd like to see if it works. If it doesn't after 6, 12 months, we can always regroup. But I think that would be the direction I'd like to go.
Sounds
Anyone?
good.
I think it sounds good. I mean, I think Joelle'd like to get back to getting free breakfast, but,
She really didn't care for the 7 a.m. breakfast
She didn't
over here in Pinellas County.
but no, I think that's a great idea. I think, you know, go to where they are and, you know, they don't have to travel. And,
Councilmember Albrecht?
Yeah, you know, I'm glad we're talking about this because we don't have a chance to talk much at any time except when we have our dinners before. But, you know, I really feel sorry for Councilmember Bunker and Beckman because they came in during the COVID, and the last 2 years have been the most, was so different than the first 2 years I was on council. Because we used to go to banquets and chamber, I mean, there was a lot more interaction with the public, almost twice, 2-3 times a week. We were out talking to people and, you know, just getting out. And the last 2 years, it's been nothing. And, you know, we're talking about this now, getting out in the public. Our COVID numbers are going up. I mean, we may be on lockdown again, you know, and I think it's very, very important to get out, not only with the council members, and so we can talk about family and have kind of a camaraderie thing there. It's real important to do that. And you know, I remember the first 2 years getting out. It was fun to be able to talk to all the council members and their wives and their husbands, their spouses. And you got to kind of get to know them, and you get a little camaraderie built up. If COVID will allow it, I think we need to make the effort, and I agree, to get out to the public. And I would be for going out to community centers, libraries, or whatever on a rotating basis, and at least be out there. And the people that want to come in, to feel comfortable come in, they could come in. And that way it gives us a little bit of getting out into the public, going to the public instead of having them come here.
Sounds good to me.
You're on board? Okay.
I have a question about it. Does a meeting, if we're going to do something like that, you won't be here either, but does that require a staff person to be in attendance as well? There has to be a staff person there to...
If there is if you are all there, or yes.
No, I mean, if we're going to do just one of us to do a meeting at the, you know, on this Thursday night at the library, and it's my turn in the rotation, that doesn't require a staff person to be present, does it? Because I'm not looking to add time to anybody's schedule, although, you know, Joelle's used to it, so.
I mean, obviously, if you wanted a staff person for a particular purpose, then you could request that. But just the fact that you're going to go to the library, you would not have to have a staff person.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're going to have to be prepared. I don't want to add a staff person.
No.
I really don't. First of all, I don't want to cut into one of their evenings, but I think we will have to be prepared to take notes and then, you know, probably share those with the rest of the council. And then there is inevitably going to be questions that we might not have the answer to on site, you know, and we'll have to get back to citizens. So it may be something you want to tape so that you can, or if you're a fast writer or a typer. But I mean, that's what I always, you know, did during the breakfasts.
Yep.
So, Councilmember Albrecht.
So another thing I enjoyed was the innkeepers meetings, the chamber meetings, CNC meetings. I mean, there's a lot of groups that get together, and it would be good for us to show at those meetings as well and field questions from people. Again, it all depends how this COVID thing works out, and, you know, if people are going to be comfortable getting together again. We'll just have to get through that.
Well, we had attendance at the CNC meetings. Both Councilmember Beckman and I were on it last night with Mr. Horn, so.
Bill had a question. He had his hand up.
Do you have something to add?
Yes, I just wanted Joelle to kind of describe logistically, I mean, what we're really talking about. You all are saying, you really wouldn't necessarily want to have a staff member there, but I think there is something we would have to do to make this work smoothly. So Joelle, would you just kind of describe, because they're talking about random,
So I'm assuming.
Well, I think
So
a rotation, of council members, and then also a rotation of either library or rec center. And we'd have to obviously reserve a room.
Right, I think what what the city manager is referring to is Joelle Castelli, Public Communications Director, is getting the list of the voters and then randomly selecting people and sending out invitations. You want to put it out via our normal channels of communications. So that'll be, you'll get probably the same crowd that you're getting now that gets our communications. I think some of what we did with the breakfast was we sent invitations out to the registered voter list. So that would go to randomly selected homes. I'm assuming that Tammy would schedule you guys on the rotation at the different rec centers and libraries, and then we would promote it.
So what are you recommending? You're recommending getting a random list?
I would recommend getting a list and then randomly selecting people to send an invitation to.
Okay. So just the postage is going to be, if you did, depending on how many people you send it to.
But I mean, then is there a way to tweak it so that, if the meeting's gonna be at the Countryside Library this month, we don't need to be inviting somebody from the beach. We wanna make sure it's.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
it.
we can use the mail house and do a radius around the rec centers and the libraries, and then select those homes, and then mail postcards, which are cheaper than letters, and then put it in our normal communication routes. But the thing with putting it in our normal communications routes is you're hitting the people who normally read our information. And I'm assuming that you want to get new and different people.
That's true.
right.
So you're probably talking about a 6,000 a year endeavor.
And that's if you don't want to have any refreshments at your rotation. A lot of times, to be honest, you get people to come to breakfast because you're feeding them. But it was a great way to interact with people who were not our normal
That's right.
It was.
regulars.
Why don't you noodle it a little bit further, and then we can put it on as an agenda item
Okay.
and discuss it,
I
rather than
wouldn't-
trying to build the plane right
Little
here.
candy.
I would not be adverse, I wouldn't be adverse to trying the breakfast thing again. To see how it goes. We can move it, we can move the, but using the same thing, I'm sure we could,
He's a morning person.
yeah.
We also want to be conscientious of when we're starting it up with the rising cases.
Right.
Yeah.
True.
Well, that's why I think we can have a discussion, and you can think about strategy. Okay. Thank you,
Thanks,
Ms.
Joel.
Castelli. 3.3.
Okay.
Funding of a facilities energy manager.
Yeah, so this one is my suggestion for our consideration, that we look at allocating some funds, maybe not today, but in the near future, for an energy manager. And I shared with you the energy manager job description, responsibilities, as well as pay for both St. Pete and the county, who have energy managers. So you can look at the extensive responsibilities. And if ever there were a position that will pay for itself, it would be this one. And so I think that we would certainly get more bang for our buck with an energy manager. And when we look at Greenprint 2.0, we have 18 or 32% of the strategies in Greenprint are new strategies. And I believe that an energy manager can fulfill the heavy lift of this specialized position. And in fact, when we had Mr. Sol Haroon here, and the question was asked, do you think we should, have an energy manager? He said, yes, we should. And to Councilmember Bunker's question, he responded, yes, a day not taking action is a day wasted as far as saving money. But he did say, he qualified it and said, but you need to take the right action. And I think that's key in that this is a very specialized, educated, trained, qualified person who has authority within the city. And those are some of the words he used. There is great merit in starting now, taking action now, but action must be based on true understanding and awareness. And there is money to be saved right now. Every single day that we are not taking action with clean energy strategies, with resilient or energy efficiencies, we are losing money. And there are jobs to create it, energy goals to meet. And so I would advocate for us looking at, in the near future, hiring an energy manager to take that on. There is absolutely no way, I think, as much as I love Sheridan and she's incredibly talented, she is not taking on the responsibility of that entire green print document. She can't. And I think the expertise spread throughout the different departments in the city, I don't think we need to put that on our department heads there. We have new strategies in green print that are called resilience planning and outreach, municipal energy management program and policy, resilient infrastructure design, municipal green revolving fund, and others that require this specialized knowledge and a full-time effort. Our Florida League of Cities, our Suncoast League of Cities meeting, again, that we had Saturday, the two top priorities are environment and sustainability and affordable housing. I would bet when we go to the Florida League of Cities conference next weekend, how much do you want to bet sustainability, resiliency, and environmental policy are at the top of the list? And so it's a new field. It is not a fad. It is something that's critical for our survival as a city. Our economy is dependent on it. And I think we would be wise to be leaders and join these. MacDill Air Force Base has an energy manager. Tampa has an energy. St. Pete, the county. I think it's time for us to look closely at that position, where it might be housed, and the responsibilities. You've got two samples. We've got two samples. And what it would mean to the city to have that. We're talking about a owner's rep or project manager for Imagine Clearwater to keep that on track and to save us money. And I think this falls right in alignment with that. It just makes good economic business sense. So I would hope that you would consider looking at that. Again, if it takes a lot of shifting and manipulating dollars right now, but maybe in our first or second quarter as we adopt green print and really figure out how are we going to make this a document that we adhere to,
Councilmember Albrecht?
I agree with you. I think that as we're changing and we're trying to get more green and design of the buildings and the things we put on the roof and everything, that we're going to need an energy manager. I see the logic in that. I mean, it's going to happen. But what I think is, until I get more input, and I'd like maybe staff maybe to let me know, it might be best to start off when we start this project, maybe with a third party, somebody that could come in and give us advice getting into the program, and then when the thing starts to really chug along, then we hire an in-house person. We're always very careful about putting on an extra FTE because that's an ongoing expense, not only in the hourly, not only on the salary, but everything that comes along with that from the city. It's a big expense. I think we're going to get to that eventually, but I think maybe we could start off with consultant that could give us advice getting into it. I don't know what that would be. It'd be something I'd need to have some input on. But that's certainly, I'm certainly open to a discussion on that.
Vice Mayor?
Well, no, I think this position, obviously, if this position, whoever the person is in this position can't save us the energy, it doesn't show the energy savings that covers what they cost, then they're probably not doing their job the way it is. But I think it's probably a position moving forward, given the today's, pardon the wrong wording, climate and everything else. It's probably a position that cities of our size and larger should be considering and probably have. Now, whether or not we can, the question is, can we institute it into this year's budget, or do we give the direction to lay the groundwork for the position, or, look at a consultant as we're moving along, and then get this position ready to be filled for next year's budget? I'm open to suggestions.
Councilmember Bunker?
I was very happy to see Councilmember Beckman put this on the agenda. That was something that I thought about bringing forward myself, but I know she could advocate so much more effectively than I can on these issues. But it does make a lot of sense. And the cost of going with a consultant, wouldn't they be charging a heck of a lot more than we would have to pay in an annual salary just to get the ball rolling? It seems to me that when we do a deal with some outside consultant, it always skyrockets up.
Well, I think that depends. I mean, you're talking about, I think the examples that you had in here were about $90,000. Was that correct? Was in that ballpark?
Yeah, I think St. Pete was 75 to 116, and the county was about 90.
Yeah, so we had 57 to 96.
Yeah, 50.
Back in 2011, when we did the original green print, we brought Honeywell in to look at all of our buildings and try to find different cost savings. The advantages of having a consultant, and I think sometimes we over-consult, by the way, but is that you have people with multiple disciplines within their team, rather than somebody who has to be an expert on everything. And I don't know that you're going to find somebody that is truly an expert on all the different avenues, even for $96,000, because chances are they're going to be working for one of these consulting companies making $150. So I think it's something I'd like to explore rather than make a decision if that's the direction we go. Also, I mean, we do have a limited number of buildings. At some point, what does that person do? When all the buildings have been analyzed and you decide where the low-hanging fruit is, hopefully we're not building too many new buildings. And unless technology is changing rapidly, then I don't know that it needs to be a full-time position. But I'd like staff to delve into that a little bit deeper. I mean, I'm always for things that have a reasonable ROI. So Mr. Horn, or Mr. Maxwell, do you all have opinion? Have you thought about this? Talked to Mr. Gloucester, he was all for creating a position. He says it's outside of their wheelhouse currently.
I've talked to Sheridan about this because I know it's come up before, and I know that Councilmember Beckman feels very strongly about it because we've talked about it. I've given her a little bit of a hard time about this, and because I felt like the best time to really talk about this, and we can do the homework, so fully understand that. We know it's going to happen at some point. It should be, in my opinion, in the context of the broader discussion you all have about your strategic priorities. Because there are going to be other other staff needs you're going to surface that you're going to want to pay for. So to me, I think it would be to your advantage to kind of see what the universe is going to look like that you're really signing up to. But we can, take a good look at this and see how this might come together for you. I agree with you. And I just would like to avoid the situation where after a couple of years, you're saying, well, let's see, we've accomplished a lot, so now what is that person going to do?
Well, that's one of my concerns.
And so then you start creating things for people to do. But I do think that this will be an ongoing need. It's just that it will probably, have to evolve. But I certainly think, at this point in time, as you look at your strategic planning sessions coming up, that as you look at your 23 budget, I think, you'll be well positioned to figure out how you want to do it in-house, consultant, whatever mix you want to have of doing it.
Well, that's good counsel on the strategic plan, because it's really going to be driven by the citizens to a great extent. And it generally doesn't result in cost cutting. It results in additional facilities and services, which is more people and more O&M.
But you bring up a good point about facilities. I mean, we're always getting requests. Do you have any vacant facilities? Well, years ago, we got out of that business of just carrying empty buildings. But we do have a finite number, of buildings. And so we certainly can problem solve how to handle what we've got. And like you said, I can't imagine you building more buildings.
Well, we're going to build one.
Huh?
We're going to build one, a new city hall.
Yeah, New City Hall, that's right. That's right.
That's the one we're going to build.
Yeah, you are going to build it.
That's true.
I still think it ought to be here, and we don't have to build a new building, but anyway, Councilmember Beckman.
I would say as far as, somebody working their way out of a job, I mean, you can have, first of all, we have goals that go all the way through 2050 on Green Print. It's a long-term document as far as making those goals reality. If we had somebody that is consistently saving us money and we put it into a green revolving fund, that's where we're going to use that money to meet that goal of 1,000 homes that have solar on them for low and moderate income people in this city. I mean, that's not something where somebody's going to make that happen in 2 years and they're out of a job. That's long-term. And that green energy revolving fund is exciting about the things that we can do with it. This is every city going forward for the next 100 years will have, any city of significance will have energy managers. It's just the way of the future and technology. And, to think that this is just, they're going to change all the light bulbs and then we're done. What have we got to find something for them to do? I mean, especially here in Florida. I mean, we have sea level rise. We have invasive species. We have energy concerns. Besides that, hopefully we're going to have a change in administration and we're going to have new state initiatives and we'll continue to have federal initiatives that all incentivize, things that work to combat climate change, and somebody's going to need to manage all that.
We try to stay nonpartisan.
I know,
up
but
here.
I'm just saying, things
Well,
will
you just
get
did
better.
say.
Well, hopefully, yeah, sorry about that. But anyway, it's firmly, all studies show that this is a necessity for cities to manage energy going forward, and especially in Florida, and especially the term that was used in Saturday's presentation from Hank Cody, our sustainability at the county, is we live on a sandbar here. We are the most vulnerable. And so planning for the future is right now. And it's not a one and done kind of thing. So that's all I got to say about that.
All right. Any other comments? Any other new business? All right, we're adjourned until Thursday morning. Remember to bring your devices and your earphones, okay? And just one other thing while we're all up here. Tomorrow is the 231st birthday of the Coast Guard. I've ordered a birthday cake for them
Okay.
to take it out to the Station Sankey at 3 o'clock. If any of you would like to go, you do need to bring a mask, and we're going to stay outside, but they're expecting us. That's it. We're adjourned. Thank you all.